A short prayer. We've worshiped and prayed today. A short prayer. God, we know you are here. We know you are present with us. Be in all of our words and our votes and our decisions and our actions today. We trust in you. Amen.
Thank you. For the meeting procedure, if you want to follow along, or being honest, if you want to do the math in your head about how much longer we're going to be here until we get done. As presented in the annual report. Mike and Kathy second. Okay. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Good. The agenda is approved. Could I have a motion to approve the minutes of the last annual meeting as drafted? Tom, read a second. Any discussion? All in favor, aye. Aye. Any opposed? Next item is approval of the consent agenda. So, as a reminder, because I always struggle a little bit with this, the consent agenda is a practice we use in meetings that groups the routine business and the written reports that are in the written annual report into one agenda item. The consent agenda can be approved in one action rather than us having motions on all of those things one at a time. In our case, we use it basically to accept all of the staff and faith ministry reports in the annual report and allows us to put them in the record without going through them one at a time. Could I have a motion to approve the consent agenda? Brian, second. Beth? All in favor? Aye. Okay, that concludes our meeting. That's all right. Item 8 is reflections and report. Pastor Shelley has some thoughts to share on the past year and the challenges and opportunities ahead.
Well, wonderful to see everybody again this morning. Lots of thoughts this morning, thinking over this last year and thinking of our world and our country in this last year and the way that we show up for worship every Sunday, where almost every week something that has happened that has taken our breath or has been unprecedented or over the line, and we come every week looking to be anchored and strengthened in God's presence and in the Word of God and in being drawn together in community, in communion, and in all the things we do together on Sunday morning. When Pastor Julie and I wrote our reports for the annual report that you hopefully have a copy of, we didn't see each other's before they were printed. And then once they were printed, we saw that we both wrote about the ways that we are inspired in how we see the light of Christ shining in you all. And the light of Christ shining in what you do here and in all the things that you do beyond here. Pastor Julie wrote in her report, "In the past year at Faith, I've witnessed the light of Christ growing and spreading in dazzling ways." Sometimes it feels particularly dazzling when we are in times that we need the light so desperately. And I was thinking of some of the things that have been growing in really beautiful, unstated ways. And one of the, here in you, among you all, and in spreading light of Christ, one of the things that came to my mind was the way you all share the light of Christ by witnessing and telling the story of God at work in your life. And I counted up, there were 17 people who did that, not pastors, from the pulpit last year, either through sharing Star Word reflections or Lenten midweek reflections or stewardship reflections or lessons and carols, art reflections. 17 people shared that witness from this space. I was thinking about the light of Christ and how we're drawn to connections and relationships, and how that's such a life-giving part of how we go out into the world, is having that connection. Did you meet anybody new here in the last year? Did you volunteer alongside somebody you didn't know before, maybe at Vacation Bible School or on a property day, or you met somebody giving blood yesterday? You all are amazing at noticing when somebody walks in here who seems like they've never been here before, and you notice, and you say hello, and you make them feel welcome in God's house. That's incredible connection and community to offer someone. That's the whole idea behind the photo directory. You got a copy today. So labor of love, thank you to Gail Minkus. I had my eyes on her a minute ago. Where is Gail? Anyway, Gail contacted every member in the whole congregation and asked for updated information. So what you have here is as updated as we have it. And may this be a way that you connect and meet somebody new or learn somebody's name that you've met. The light of Christ shines in so many ways in education programs here, led by people among us here. The adult forums, we've had incredible adult forums this last year. Ethics and AI, violence in the Bible, what to do with it. So many, many, many things, and we've shared up here before, and you've seen it without us saying it, the ways that our ministries to children and families just keep growing here. All of those things mean that we are constantly running to catch up with what's happening and seeking to keep supporting and providing the structure for all those things to keep going. So we're continually trying to find new space. Each year we've had to reclaim other spaces in the building and turn them into Sunday school classrooms. We're going to have to do that again before next year. Every time we add a Sunday school class, we need 2 more teachers. So add volunteer leaders. We are asking all the time. You all know, if you're sitting in this room, you've been asked by us for 1 or 15 things to be a part of here. But spaces is a challenge. Finding all the support, continuing to reach out, and you all continuing to stand up, and staffing. Parveen's been with us for 2 years now, an incredible gift. We've had college interns helping in the summer with all the youth programs. We're going to have 2 this summer. We need 2. And having seminarian Shara with us this year has been also an added gift of help and support. And as children and family programs continue to grow, we're going to need more of that staff support and more of the other structural support. So that's one of the challenges ahead of us and one of the things before us that we're looking at and trying to do in a way that we can keep up with all that's going on. So we have a lot to do today. I just want to sum up in saying, let us keep shining the light of Christ in ways that make this growing place continue to be a known place for people and a connected place. Continue to keep doing all the incredible things you're doing out in the world and telling us about it and sharing your witness and your stories with each other. And we continue to all step up together to provide the support and all that we need for the things that are happening here. Thank you. You all inspire us every day. And now we get to see better pictures of all these things with the words. Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor. So once again, I'm taking the easy way out on the President's Report by letting pictures from the past year, along with Dr. Zach's help, serve as my report. But before we do that, I wanted to highlight 2 things that I'd ask you to look for. The first is, as I listen to our new members this year, there are many different reasons that drew them to faith, but the one that I hear most often is that they were looking for a family-friendly church. Parents want their children to experience a welcoming place. I hope you see that in the slides. The second thing is, as I noted in my written report, I am just blown away by the volunteer efforts at Faith and the sheer number of people who happily offer their time and talents to our congregation. Please look for examples of those as well.
Tough act to follow. Thanks, Jim. I really appreciate it. I'm Greg Heydrich, for those of you who don't know me. I've just finishing up my first year as a treasurer here at Faith. Before we go into the really fun part of the meeting, I just want to thank a few people for their help over the past year. First, Tim O'Hulan, last year's treasurer, for a lot of help with my transition into this role, and especially for the magic thumb drive that has all of the spreadsheets for everything and all of the financial history. Jim Hall, a multiple-time treasurer who's helped me tremendously over the year with a lot of advice and counsel. Lynn Lulo, who tracks how much we give and when. And most of all, Jane Schwartz, who is the true hero of our financial statements, our financial reports, our financial management here at Faith. So thank you, Jane, for all of your work over the course of the year. So in addition to following that, the slideshow, I'm also the first person who gets to try this little goofy-looking remote thing. So we'll see if it really works here. It does work, so. Dave, it's going to work for you too, I'm sure. So before we talk about the budget for 2026, I want to reflect a little bit on 2025. We had really a fine, excellent, all those words, financial year in 2025. I will admit, when we were at this meeting last year and Tim noted that we were about to approve the first $1 million budget, I was a little skeptical and sort of thankful he was handing over what was likely to be a deficit at year end to me. It didn't turn out that way. I was a bit of a doubting Thomas, I guess. But our regular envelopes once again exceeded our budget by $14,000 this year, even that larger budget. Other revenues were up by about $12,000 over the course of the year. Expenses came in under budget by about $18,000. We had some savings in our salaries. We had some, due to hiring a little later in the year than planned, we had some savings across utilities last year and a few other areas of our utilities, and then a little bit of repairs and maintenance that went a little beyond what we'd expected. Some big things got accomplished financially last year. The biggest, of course, are those panels strapped onto the top of the roof, the solar project. We did increase mission trip support last year. We're actually going to increase it a little bit more in 2026. And we upgraded the cabinets in the SE space. If you happen to stop in there, you'll see that it's a nicer space, more usable space for the SE team. So all of that was great, and we ended the year with cash and investments still in a very, very healthy position of about $685,000 net of what's in the endowment fund, or that's on top of that. So we're in good shape to continue the mission of Faith and the mission that this congregation has adopted. To I guess, the credit of the many blessings that God has given us, and of course our really, really generous members of this congregation, we ended the year with a very solid budget surplus of about $45,000, just a shade underneath of that. So really a tremendous outcome for the year. That's where we ended up for 2025. So congratulations to everyone on that outcome. What are we going to, I guess I've got to point it there. Here just is an exhibit of what the 2025 actuals. I just summarized the main items there, but just to make sure that you've got it in front of you, you can see the exact surplus or excess revenue over expenses, $44,927. So that's where we ended up, and that those numbers are in your annual report. Here's the council talked about at its last meeting a couple weeks ago, how we would dispose of or use that $45,000 of surplus from 2025. And here's what they approved. First, 10% from the total that we came will be given to benevolence. Jen Bear and the service team will have to decide, and I don't think they have yet, specifically what those recipients will be, what organizations will be the recipient of that benevolence, but just about $4,500 to benevolence. We will also make a $25,000 contribution to the Capital Maintenance Fund. As I'll talk a little bit later when we talk about the financing on the solar project, we did flow a lot of money through our Capital Maintenance Fund this last year, a lot of money out of the Capital Maintenance Fund to help with the funding or financing of the solar panels. We ended the year with the Cap Maintenance Fund about $127,000, which, just to put that in context, that's still the second highest it's been at any year end in the last 10 years. But we are putting $25,000 back in. That'll put it up to $152,000. I will comment on the budget. We are not putting additional contributions into the 2026 operating budget to put more money in. And that's something we're going to have to look at over the course of this year. So I'll talk about that when we get to the budget. And then finally, we've got $15,000 in change from that surplus that we expect to use this year to go into the solar fund. That will really be used to pay interest and principal accruing on the mortgage that we've taken on for that. Again, as I'll talk about in the when we talk about the solar project, we actually think there's a reasonable chance, I'm certainly not promising it today, but a reasonable chance that we can retire that mortgage entirely by the end of this year. But we'll see how that plays out. It depends on some grants and tax credits and so forth that we're applying for and expect to get over the course of the year. So we have put aside money from the surplus to handle that interest and principal expense during this year. So that's what the council has voted to, how they've voted to use those surplus funds from 2025. Let me now give you an overview on the 2026 budget. And after I get through this, I'll pause and take any questions, although we had a lot of good questions at last week's budget forum. But if anyone would like to follow up on some additional questions today, happy to take those questions. We do have a break-even budget. I'm taking a bit of a liberty with saying it's a break-even budget. If you noticed in the reports, there's a rookie mistake in there. This is my first year at this. I waited till kind of too late to dispose of the last $267, and there's always a last $267 when you're putting a budget together. Jane reminded me of it at 10 p.m. the night before. The exhibits were due to Eric, and I knew if I changed it, it would ripple through about 7 or 8 spreadsheets, and I was just too worn out to check them all. So I'll just explain it all year long and take my heat for that. Tim will probably heckle me about it at some point. But anyway, so it's break even, but for $267. Overall revenues up about $7,500. It's about 3.5% against the 25 budget. Regular envelopes up about 2.7%. Most of the other revenues are consistent with recent patterns, and I'm going to show you the revenue exhibit in just a moment, and happy to answer questions about those. I'll make a couple of additional comments there. Our staffing and benefit costs for an institution like Faith Church is the great bulk of what we spend. About 66 to 68% or so of what we spend each year is for staff and benefits. That's up 7.6%. About 4.5 to 5% of that are in raises, salary increases, and those are following the Senate guidelines. And of course, we're looking at what's going on with inflation, the inflation situation, and wanting to make sure that we're rewarding and retaining the really wonderful staff we have here at Faith Church. The additional 2.5 to 3% in there is some additions we've made to our staffing to add youth support. We have continued to be adding youth support to this congregation over the last 5 or 8 years. There's a really significant increase in spending in that area over that period of time. And I think, of course, we're seeing that. A call for the children's sermon in the 8:30 service gets about 60 or 70 kids up here, it seems like, a lot of times. So that's really where we're shifting resource and resource focus. That's exhibited in the staffing and benefit costs with some increased support for the youth ministries. We have on the utilities gone ahead and assumed, it's an assumption, we think it'll pay off, but we've assumed some savings in our electricity bill from the solar panels. Our insurance costs are up a little bit due to some normal market fluctuation and the fact that we've got some really expensive equipment up on the roof. And then finally, I've already mentioned that we're pausing for this year this budgeted contribution from the operating funds to the cap maintenance fund. We are going to have to look at that carefully over the course of this year, work with the property committee, and work that back into funding. We will have, of course, as I mentioned, the cap maintenance fund will be about $152,000. That is the second highest in the last 10 years. The higher one was last year when we had about $158,000 in it. So feel comfortable about that for this year, but we will be studying that over the course of the year. Here's the revenues, and if you look at the bolded line, if you can see it, I'm sure back in the back, you're probably going to have to adjust the eyeglasses to see that, but the main items, of course, regular envelopes is the main item. I'll simply comment on one. Tim noted last year on those plate offerings, he made the comment that he didn't know where those were coming from because he never saw anything in the plate when it came by. And we had about $11,500 from that last year. Well, those people came back to church in 2025. And we ended with about $13,000. So for the budget, we've gone ahead and just struck the midpoint in there. So if you're one of those people, please keep putting it in there. The other one that I'd probably note is special gifts. Really a strong ending year on that. We haven't taken all of that or assumed all of that for next year. But so there's the revenues. It will be the second $1 million budget. We're assuming a budget revenues of $1,037,125 is what's being proposed. Expenses, these numbers are even smaller. I've already described these in some detail or hit the highlights. Here's where you'll see my little mistake down there. I'm counting on a profit of $267. I hope it's more like $45,000, and we can again give some to benevolence. But that's again that's in your exhibits in the sheet or in the agenda for the meeting. So that is what we've got. Budget summary gets you a little less detail on this, and you can see it again. And I think we're at the point where we're ready for any questions anyone has. And ultimately, Jim, I think we need a motion to approve the budget. Are there any questions I can answer for anyone?
Great. Oh, Greg.
Yeah, it's not concerned, but I mentioned at the budget forum last week, Greg, I'm sorry. There's always a big assumption that you make about how much will come in regular envelope revenue that is both unpledged and is not in electronic giving, where somebody is, even though they haven't pledged, we know they're there, they're contributing, they're continuing to contribute, and you can really count on that. That's a really big assumption. In last year's budget, it was worth about $78,000 out of 960 or 960 or so that we ended up with. This year we've assumed that it will be right at $80,000. So that's about 9% of that total regular envelope giving. That's always a little bit of a heart stopper when you're kind of working your way through that one. The way that we do that, Greg, is we look at the history, the 5-year history, 4-year history, 3-year history, and in fact, it's been greater than that in each of those years. Last year, that number came in at somewhere close to about $88,000 to $89,000. So that's the one that kind of always gives you pause as you're thinking about it. We try to be conservative in it, but it is an assumption that we're thinking our way through. The other one that I would just note that is one that we really wrestle with, and Jane and I have spent a lot of time kind of talking through this and how to deal with it. The pastors have spent a lot of time on it, and that is, if there's pressure that we're getting in Faith's budget, it is the pressure from desire for those youth programs, and they're costly. 5 years or so ago, we weren't budgeting for Vacation Bible School. I don't think we were doing Vacation Bible School. Now we have all day long, a full week, 100 kids, and we're setting a limit at 100. We could probably enroll more. And so that's where the budget is coming from, and figuring out how to balance that out. As that's growing more rapidly than we would expect 2.7% in regular envelope to grow, that's where the pressure comes from. So the way we've wrestled with it is to try and fit it in where we can, try to make some trims. Jane and I did make some trims off of requested amounts, and then we're watching it really carefully over the course of the year. So I hope that gives you a sense of a little bit of the angst that we go through on this and how we get to an end point, but that's kind of what we do.
Other questions? If not, could I have a motion to approve the proposed budget? Kathy, second. Mike Brown. Thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor, aye? Aye. Opposed? Great. Thank you.
Okay.
Wonderful
Thank you.
job. Thank you. I'll now ask Don Hallberg, the chairman of the Endowment Fund Committee of Trustees, to present his annual report. I told Don he's got 5 minutes, and he told me when you give a hot mic to an old pastor, you get what you get.
I don't think I said old. But it is dangerous, one who's left the pulpit and then say, I've got you as a captive audience. I hope you all have, pardon me, cut the electricity, shame on you. I hope you all have a copy of the new endowment brochure, Make Ministry Happen, Share Your Joy. If you don't have one, raise your hand, please. And here's somebody who doesn't have one. Where are the ballot people? They'll give you one. Here it comes, here it comes. I hope, I ask, I plead, take it home and read it. Give it some serious consideration. And that insert that you see will be reprinted each and every year with a growing list of people who have said, yes, Don, yes, pastors, we have remembered faith in our will. So this ministry, the shining light of Christ that comes to us every Sunday, as we have heard, that it might continue to grow and blossom and flourish, so that we can continue with youth outreach ministries, so that we can continue with those mission trips that we hear about every year, so that we can not only sustain ministry of faith, but we can expand it beyond our imagination and beyond the time of our own lives, that it might be here for our children and for our grandchildren. Now, the list that you have before you, let me just update the numbers. I know you've memorized the report that's on page 17 already. I just know that. The endowment fund now is at $315,000. Grateful for the gift from the Enoch Anderson estate and other special gifts. And we've been blessed with good rates, both at Wintrust and at the ELCA's Ministry Growth Fund. So the fund has grown by about 8.5% since last year at this time. The recipients, the committee has seen as a major responsibility this last year in creating this brochure. And you notice on the insert, or in the brochure, there's a place for you to sign that says, hey, I'd like to talk to you about my estate. I'd like to talk to you about how I can give the Faith Church and its endowment into perpetuity. And I hope you will do that. If not today, next Sunday or another Sunday, leave a note for the pastors and we'll follow up with you. My colleagues will be at the doors at the end of the service. No one will be allowed out until you give us a... But look for David and Molly, and I'll be at the far door over there, so that we can share that one with another. The committee also sees its responsibility. These are funds into perpetuity, and so distributions are only made at 4% of the preceding 5-year rolling term. And again, The largest recipient of those has been the Fly mission trips. Secondly, you know, this church has a real problem. We have too many kids. And so we've run out of space. How many raise your hand, how many churches do you know that have run out of Sunday church school space? Huh? Faith Church has. And so a grant was made to the congregation to do a space study. How can we expand our space? How can we make our space more efficiently used for Sunday school? Because we have run out of space. Thanks be to God. Thanks be to God. And then a grant to the quilters, and I hope Mr. Hall will allow me to tell you a story about quilters in a minute. But remember last year, Molly Hall came up here to tell us about her years here in this congregation, from Sunday school now to adulthood. I can't remember how old she said she was, but she's getting old. And she's now a Sunday school teacher, and what the meaning of the fly to her faith formation meant to her. And Molly challenged us, me and you, challenged us to look at our own estate, to talk to our tax advisors, and to see what we could do if we might not remember faith in our will. I'm going to embarrass Molly. She's here, I think. There's she way in the back. I'm going to embarrass Molly. Molly, have you and Ben, have you gone to see your tax advisor or your lawyer or your whoever to get your will in order? And well, it's none of your business, Don. What have you done, Molly?
Well, my dad is my tax advisor, so I think...
Oh! And you notice there is one hall on the list already. There are two halls, Jim and Candy. Pardon me.
Yeah, but we've started the process, and you can add your name next year officially.
Woo! Hey, let's say thanks. And let me add two more names to the list. My fault for overlooking Larry and Pam Johnson. They should be on that list as well, and they will be next year when this list comes out, and Len Cada as well. But we've asked people who early on mentioned that they had remembered faith in their church to say a word or two to us. Tim and Amy, boy, I'm sorry. Tim and Amy Houlihan, please come. My apologies. Well, you know, you get old, you know.
Good afternoon. Tim and I went to a legacy giving workshop about 8 months ago, and it had nothing to do with faith. It was a nonprofit that we'd given money to. And one of the things that they said is, when you die, you are no longer part of an organization, you're no longer advocating for that organization, and you're no longer giving money to that organization if you don't put that organization in your will. And I cannot say that that's why we're giving money to faith, because we put faith in our will a long time ago. But my star word this year is clarity. And when Tim and I talked quite a bit about why we are giving money in our will to faith, and I realized that that statement that we heard was a moment of clarity, where we realized, in fact, when we die, we want the ministries of faith to continue, and so that's why we have decided to leave money in our endowment. To the endowment. Did you want to say something? No.
Well, most of our wives speak for us. Anyway. But the point is, we can all remember Faith Church in our will or in our estate. And I like to say to people, you know, you put Faith Church in your will today, it's not going to cost you a penny while you walk this earth. And faith will be the recipient of those gifts to make ministry happen. I give thanks for my colleagues, Dave Sakara. Well, David, where are you? Who's been on the committee? He'll be at that back door. Molly will be in the center door. I'll be over here, Pastor Shelley, and our chairperson, Mr. Hall, for their hard work on that committee. Now, are there any quilters in the room today? Oh, there's one hiding over there. Quilters have been a recipient for a long time. And, you know, every year, the church is covered with quilts, and we say, look at those. Aren't they nice? And the two pastors come, and they bless them. They maybe even sprinkle holy water on them. And then they're shipped off someplace, and we forget it. In the days when I worked And I know there are some of you who are going to say, you hardly ever worked at Don. But the days when I worked, my first international assignment was to go to Palestine and to see your and my ministries, Lutheran ministries, in that war-torn country. And the first visit was to the Mount of Olives. And you know, you and I, Lutherans, we own the Mount of Olives. Doesn't say that in Matthew, so don't quote me, or Mark or Luke or John. But on the top of the Mount of Olives is Augusta Victoria Hospital. It's a Lutheran World Federation hospital. It wouldn't be there if it weren't for people like Faith that we give on our benevolence and through our gifts. And the first stop was in a room, maybe twice the size of our gathering space. The lights were dimmed. There was quiet music. As my eyes adjusted to the dim light, I saw what I thought were lazy boy chairs all around the periphery of that room. And every chair had a young child sitting in the chair and a dialysis machine pumping away at those kids because of the life that they have to live. And every kid had a quilt. I asked my Palestinian guide, they all have quilts. And he looked at me like I was from outer space. He said, of course they do. I said, where'd they come from? They came from your people. From your people. From Faith's people. Oh, the Faith, the quilt didn't say this is from Faith Lutheran Glen Ellen. May have said it was from St. John, someplace else. You and I do that, and that's our ministry to the whole church, to the whole world. And this endowment fund is pleased that we can support the Faith quilters, we can support Fly, and we can support that needed space needed in this church. Thanks for all you do. Thanks for thinking about Faith and the endowment. Please sign the card.
Look at that, 4.5 minutes. I didn't think. Thank you, John. The next item is a follow-up report on our solar project. For that, I'll ask Dave Buss, one of the members of our green team, to talk about the completion of the project, the operation of the system, and Greg Heydrich just to cover an update on the financial piece of that.
Thank you, Jim. A year ago, we approved a pretty big project here at the congregational meeting. We had a unanimous approval of a very large, expensive solar project, and our green team was thrilled. All of our members were really happy. We were just on cloud nine. And then we got to work and we finalized the contracts with Straight Up Solar. They started working in depth on their specific engineering plans. We got on their work schedule, and we started the process for them to get everything together so they could apply for the permits and all of the things necessary. And we were all sure we would be wrapped up in generating electricity by early summer. Well, it didn't quite work out that way as projects go. The approvals took a little bit longer than they thought. The schedule changes here a little bit here and there. And we actually got a start on it in August. So that's just, kind of the way those kind of things go. We've got a few pictures that we want to start off with first, showing the installation first off on the east side of the building, on the two different sections there. And then on the west side of the building, on the north end, a few of the panels going up there. And then the big array on the south side, the panels going up. And then we've got a little bit of a video I'd like to show. This is stuff that was filmed by Dave Albin. I want to give him a thanks for that. And a portion of what's on our website. And I'd like to point out that I have a little bit of a secret. Our green team had heard through the grapevine that the workers for Straight Up Solar were really fast. And turns out they were right. They really move along quite well. I thought this was really interesting how Dave was able to film all of this information, all of these great shots, although I think part of it was because he wanted to play with his drone. He got some really good footage, and I really appreciate his help for helping me get it trimmed down a little bit and put into our PowerPoint this morning. But it was quite a project, and I know we were all thrilled about seeing it go up, and this part of it, the installation of the panels on the roof and the wiring on the roof, all went pretty smoothly. I'd like you, as he does this pan around, I'd like you to kind of take note of the fact that we have panels now on 3 directions of our roof, and that allows us to get sun early in the morning on this east side, and through the mid part of the day on the south side, and then on that western slope, we can get power even into the early evening as the sun moves around the sky. So I think it's going to ultimately give us a really, really good performance over the course of a year's time. So this was in August when this was all wrapped up, and again, we were real excited to get it all fired up and everything. And we started running into some more problems. Turns out that some of the equipment that we needed for the inverters wasn't with the original proposal, and some things had been updated and changed, and so we had to wait for new equipment to come in. I had to add a combiner box to one of the inverters, and as it turned out, we had already loaded up the wall with equipment. We didn't have a room for that combiner box on the wall, so we ended up having to move equipment to a panel that's away from, we had to move it away from the wall and then run wiring from that panel back to the wall to some of the boxes there. Well, you know what happens when you put wires underground? We hit the Comcast cable twice. And every time we did a change, we'd have to get a new approval and a new permit adjusted and a new inspection by the city and the utility, and it just kept going on and on and on, and we were really, really getting frustrated because it was sunny every day. I mean, we were missing out on all of this great sunlight. But that's, kind of the way it worked. And then in October, everything was ready to go, and we even tried it out. The people from Straight Up did some testing on it. Everything was working great. And we thought we were home free. Well, there was one final thing we were still waiting for. It's called permission to operate. PTO by ComEd. And for no real reason, because everything had been approved and passed off, and everything was fine. But we had to wait for that final approval. Well, finally, on November 10th, we got the email from ComEd, permission to operate. So we got all excited. We called Eric here at the church, and he found a pair of pliers and went out and cut the tag off the switch, and he flipped the switch, and we turned it on for the first time, November 10th. Just in time for the shortest, cloudiest, snowiest, months of the entire year. So, but at any rate, we got it going, and it got started. And so it started on November 10th, and it so happens that ComEd's billing cycle goes from the 11th of one month to approximately the 10th of the next month. So we got in on the billing cycle from November to December. And during that billing cycle, our system produced 4,200 kilowatt hours. And the ComEd portion of our bill produced 3,328 kilowatt hours. So in the cloudy, snowy month, short day month of November, from November to December, we did produce 55% of all of our usage with the solar array. And so, and then we had another billing cycle before today that went from December to January, it just wrapped up. And in that billing cycle, we produced 4,390 kilowatt hours, and that ended up being 54% of our usage for that month. And these kilowatt hour numbers are coming from the system, from the inverters and the meters on that system. Our power that we generate from the system during the day goes straight to our load first. So it doesn't go through a meter as far as ComEd is concerned. So it doesn't show up entirely on our bill. It's just kind of an absence of use. And so the only way to really get an accurate number on that is to use the metering that's built into the system. And so this amount of electricity boils down to a savings of $373 for the first month at a rate that we pay. We pay 8.9 cents per kilowatt hour. And then in the December month, or December to January, we generated 4,390 kilowatt hours, and that gave us a savings of $390. So, you know, the system is there, it's generating electricity, but I wanted to kind of take another look and see, well, what does it really mean to our bottom line in terms of dollars? And so I took a look back at November of last year, and our ComEd bill then was $1,100. This month, it was $731. So we did save $368 in comparison to the year before. And then in the next month, December to January, a similar usage last year was $1,064, and this year was $654. So we saved about $410 in just that comparison. And then one more comparison that I wanted to look at was, how did this compare to the projections that we got originally from Straight Up? Because we based all of our decisions on what they said we would save. So I wanted to see how we were measuring up. And when I looked at that, their projection for November was 3,900 kilowatt hours, and we generated 4,200. And in the next month, they predicted 4,000 kilowatt hours, and we produced 4,390. So it appears that we are right on track with the production of the system based on the projections from the company. And I think that bodes well for us going forward, because the bulk of our savings are going to come in the spring, summer, and fall months when we have more sunshine and not quite so much snow. I think in the total scheme of things, we were projecting savings of about $6,000 to $7,000 over the course of the year. It looks like it's probably going to end up being closer to $8,000 to $9,000. So we're really tickled about that, and I think it really bodes well for the overall performance of the system. And then probably the most important benefit of the system is the environmental benefit. The production that we've made so far has saved 15,382 pounds of carbon dioxide from going into the atmosphere. And I think personally that's probably one of the most important things that we could have done. And it's a very positive stewardship example for our community. And you know, we're right front and center with this array on our roof, and I think everybody goes by sees it, and it's a real testament to the stewardship of this congregation. And on that note, I'd like to have Kathy come up and talk about another program that's going on.
I'll be super fast. The Glen Ellen Chamber of Commerce does this awards for people, and one of their awards is the community or group that's going greener. So we would really love it. Glen Ellen, our church has done a lot of things that are green. We're doing this amazing solar, which you guys have amazingly supported, and making the world better. We've also switched our candles from plastic to refillable. We've switched our communion cups from plastic to glass. We have our gardens all around that are environmentally friendly and local gardens, and then we also have the garden space that we use that people grow. Those are all things that I think our church is doing amazingly well. And if you go, we're going to have the information in the Dove, but you can go to the Chamber's website and you can vote for our church undergoing greener, and we'll get recognition for that. And I think even more so, I was talking to Jackie Kazaza, who's in charge of Go Green Glen Ellen. She's like, she just wants the community to see what the potential is of what other communities can do. So yes, it could get us $500 towards paying down the solar, but really what's best is we can then share with other communities what is the potential at churches and what you can do. So it will be in the Dove, but also you can go to the chamber and vote for Going Greener. Did you have a question? That I don't know. Is Rob here? Nah. What did you say? You don't have to be. You're a member here, so it's your community here. So we are part of here. And if that's wrong, we will put it in the Dove that you have to be. So that's it.
Thank you, Kathy. And I'll just wrap up this really quickly, just with a reminder on the financial structure of this cost, and hopefully one more report at the end of next year. Here's just a real quick rundown. The equipment, labor, and related fees for the project, $247,000 and some change. Miscellaneous other project costs, those are permit expenses, inspection expenses, some fees to apply for some of the grants and so forth, another $7,000. So all in, it costs us about $255,000 for this. Sources of our initial financing, $148,000 in the mortgage from the Mission Investment Fund. That is the lending arm of the ELCA. We pulled $92,400 from our capital maintenance fund, a real testament to the strength of that over the course of the year. Grants of $12,000 and then miscellaneous gifts through various dedicated offerings of a little over $5,000. That difference is just, that little $2,000 difference is just flowing into the solar fund and is helping us right now on the initial interest payments on that loan. So that's the money we spent, and there's where it came from. A couple of additional notes. We are expecting rebates and tax credits, and you'll see those listed on my next slide. Those were part of the Green Team's plans and estimates going into this. As we receive those, and we do expect to receive those almost entirely, except for one that is planned to be delayed and paid out over 6 years, but most of those will come in 2026. They will go to pay off the loan first, and that's why I said earlier that we think we've got at least a shot at getting that loan completely paid off this year, which would be terrific. And then we'll, on those those rebates that we get over the course of the next 6 years, and I think that's in rough change, it's about $14,000 each year that we should be getting. Those will just be put back into the capital maintenance fund to replenish that fund as we go along. Here's another way of looking at those costs, and it just lists those various rebates, And this was simply the exhibit that the green team showed last year with the numbers that we're currently expecting on those various rebates and credits updated for what our project actually cost in the end. And then finally, just a quick thing on the loan terms. So as I mentioned, the lender was the Mission Investment Fund. It's a 10-year maturity date on that loan, 7.375 interest. We did take a mortgage lien on the building. There is no prepayment penalty. And we have interest-only payments on that loan until July of this year. After July, we'll move to principal and interest. So that's it. That's what we have on the financing. And Jim, I think I turn it back to you at this point.
Questions, John?
Quick question for Dave. What do we expect in some months? Do we expect positive or generate more electricity than we're using, correct?
Yeah, the original proposal was saying that over a year's time, we would produce just a little bit more than what we typically use here in the church. But it appears that we're possibly even going to produce more than that because of, and I think a big part of it is the fact that we have panels on east, south, and west, and it gives us a long period. And then there's a real wild card in the billing of ComEd. A big portion of our current bill is called a demand charge. And that demand charge is the highest 15-minute period of usage that we use here at the church between Monday and Friday from 9 to 6. So anything that we use for a 15-minute period that is the highest for that period, we get billed for that month. And that's a big number, and it ends up being over half of our bill every month. But there was really no way, very good way at least, of predicting how much our system would reduce that, because it's kind of a wild card to try to figure what your demand is going to be, and we don't want to curtail our usage. We just want to reduce the payment if we can. Well, I think the fact that we will, most of those Monday through Friday days from 9 to 6, be generating electricity through the summer months at least, when the demand charge is the highest, I think there's going to be additional savings there. And I think the dollar savings are even going to be more substantial than what we're predicting. So, anything else?
Okay. Thank you, Dave. Kathy? Greg, for that. All right, we're in the home stretch. Hang in there. Council is appointed, the next item is elections. Council has appointed Kathy Baj, Sells, and Brian Conant as counters. If anyone does not have a ballot, please raise your hand. If you should be a voting member, and while those are being passed out to you. Voting, just a reminder, voting members at this meeting, as defined in the Constitution, are baptized and confirmed members who have communed in this congregation, have made a contribution, and who do not hold membership in another congregation. Obviously, only take a ballot if you meet that criteria. As we do every year, Council has proposed a slate for election. I will ask for other nominations, but the slate is listed on the ballot. You'll notice a new council position being voted on this year called Staff Liaison. While we don't have a large staff, it turns out to be very diverse in a number of ways. Full-time, part-time, short-term, ordained, seminarian, intern, preschool, salaried, hourly, different benefits depending on those designations, and all this in an increasingly complex regulatory environment. So this year we had a task force that rewrote our personnel policy manual to try to get caught up on those things. And we've added a council position to basically lessen the burden of just administering issues in this area and things in that area. So I will quickly, while the ballots, I guess they've been passed out, ask the candidates on the slate to stand when I read their names. So stand or wave your hand so people can see who you are. Chris Benton, President. Dave Alvin, Secretary. Tom Hardy, Stewardship. Gail Nelson, Preschool Liaison. I'm already standing. Mike Ron, Property, second term. Molly Hall, Endowment Committee. Pam Hardwick, Carl Henninger, and Tina Rudens as the Synod Assembly voting members. Katie Conant, Nominating Committee, and Chris Ulrich for Rainbow Place Preschool Board Chair. That's not Chris. Chris was a proxy. Now, before we vote, though, I'm embarrassed to admit that last year I neglected to ask for any other nominations. And somebody I heard from later said, what are we supposed to do? We just mark yes on everything, which is kind of the way the elections work. But at this time, I'd like to ask if there are any additional nominations, and which is certainly fine. And if so, please state the name and the office you would nominate that person for. Any nominations from the floor? Okay, I think I know how this election is going to turn out. So after you fill out your ballot, please pass it to the center. And the counters will collect them. And we'll have the results shortly. Good job. Now, while we're waiting for the votes to be tabulated, I'd like to recognize the retiring council members. First is Kathy DeBage in the center aisle right now for stewardship. Kathy led the stewardship team in the last 2 successful stewardship campaigns, which included, among other things, a substantial increase in the number of financial pledges this year. Beyond that, I'd like to say that Kathy is a very thoughtful and at times passionate member of faith as a whole and of council. When we were considering formation of the Green Team, for example, we needed a home for it in the structure of council. It could have been under property, maybe service or finance, but stewardship seemed the most appropriate. And Kathy readily agreed to bring it under that stewardship umbrella. In fact, when we asked her, she said that she's very passionate about solar energy and care for the earth. Could she just do that instead of chairing the stewardship committee? The answer was no. But she did both and did them well, so thank you, Kathy. Next, I'd like to recognize Retta Hennessy, Rainbow Liaison. Are you here, Retta? Oh, put your hand up a little more than that. So you may remember this, the Rainbow Liaison was a new position when Retta joined council 4 years ago. It was created basically to build open lines of communication and allow council to fulfill its oversight role while supporting but still not interfering with Rainbow's own board and staff. It's a tricky position to navigate when it hasn't been done before. But Retta made that happen and then some. Her calm, supportive, and occasionally when needed challenging demeanor was perfect. She was also a driving force for the Sustainable Garden, as you know, the annual seed giveaway around Mother's Day, and the Rainbow Place open houses. So for that, thank you, Retta. Gary Nelson is retiring as secretary. So Gary and I have known each other for 30, 40 years, both professionally and from mission trips way back when. The council secretary kind of keeps everything on track and moving along. Exec meetings on Tuesday, written reports for council will do here. You have devotions this month. Here's the draft agenda. Here's the minutes. Annual reports are due on this date, et cetera, et cetera. And Gary's a gifted writer and well organized, so this was right up his alley. He and Gail also hosted our council social event in lieu of a meeting every July, which was really his most important function. And he did it well. And he helped us, frankly, not be too serious on council. So Gary, thank you for your service. And I think that's everything.
Or Jim Hall, we're not letting him leave council, but he is finishing his term as president. And if you've known Jim over the years, or if today is the first time you've ever seen Jim in action, you already know that leadership is one of his spiritual gifts. And he shares that with this congregation in all sorts of ways when he's been on council and when he hasn't. But on council, Jim goes a mile and then 3 more. When you're the congregation president, there's plenty to do. And additionally, you're on the endowment team. Jim took on 3 or 4 extra committees additionally, being a major part of the Green Team, a major part of our HR task force, and we had a Space Force, our Space Force task force of trying to more efficiently use our space. And then he also, I guess there wasn't enough, he took on building all new 10 benches that we got out here. Yeah, out this way here. So for me, getting to partner in ministry with Jim Hall is a gift. And getting to call him up, or we go out for coffee monthly and we talk about what's going on in the congregation, has helped carry the burden of all of the things that happen here, and been a joy. We've had fun. And I'm thrilled that he's going to stay on in council and see us into this new staff liaison role, because all of this HR work, there's a lot to it too. So thank you for all you do for God's people.
Thank you very much. It's a delight to do this, to be here in this place with you. All right, have we got the results from the ballots? Counters?
The slate passed.
Everybody was elected. Everybody was elected. Great. Congratulations. We need to adjourn and have a closing prayer. Could I have a motion to adjourn, please? Greg, second. Mike Ron, thank you. All in favor? Aye. And before you leave, could I ask Pastor Julie to end us with a closing prayer?
Let's pray. There we go. Holy God, we give you thanks for everything we have shared in this year and for the ways we've gotten to see and celebrate it this morning. Thank you for the leaders of our congregation who have guided us so well, and for the new leaders who've answered your call. Strengthen us for the ministry you've entrusted to us. Send us out from here with energy, intention, and love in your name. Help us continue to shine with your light and your glory. And all God's people said, Amen.